I've been wanting to do a video on old school essentials for quite some time, and I purchased this single volume of the rules tome not that long ago, and it contains, if you have this rule set, you may have it in separate books, but this is all a compilation of the main rules, the magic, the rules for the different characters, and the monsters, and pretty much everything in one volume, which is pretty convenient. And in addition to wanting to do this for a while, I've been wanting to do some wilderness, some more videos on wilderness or exterior overland settings and sessions. And I received this setting, which for Rackham Vale, I did a flip through of this. You can see that video by following the link here or the link down below. And coincidentally, I didn't realize it until I got into it. It is designed to be used with old school essentials. So it seemed to be a natural pairing. I'm going to also possibly use bringing in, I don't know yet, we'll see how it goes, a packet of particular peaks. It is a sort of drop-in system neutral exterior setting that is, it says system neutral, old school inspired fantasy setting. You can write a side quest with the peaks, start a parallel campaign, etc., or simply pull content from this packet for your sessions. And I may do this. I'm not sure. It's got incredibly beautiful art and very evocative. So that may come into play. The video is going to follow my new-ish order, which is getting straight to the session. If you're interested in how the session was put together, the choices I made, the decisions that, what did and didn't come into gameplay, you should go forward to the second part of the video, which talks about how I created the adventure. Pepper the halfling lived a peaceful life in Lambeth Hamlet, a serene and idyllic place nestled on the banks of the magical Laganwater River and the Dream Peaks. Crystal lavender-colored waters flowed from these peaks, sometimes creating a dim rainbow glow. House-sized mushrooms grew on the river shores, and it was within one of these musty homes that Pepper lived. When our story begins, Pepper has been enticed to journey far by his friends Constance the elf and Webster the thief in search of a magical item taken from the Lambeth dreamlands. Hidden in the witchy, boggy wilds of Limp's March, this item must be returned home, or else the harmonious balance of this little world will be destroyed forever. So in assessing the situation, Pepper and friends are going to need to travel from the Lambeth Hamlet, where they're living basically in joy, to retrieve this item, whatever it is, that is here in Limp's Marsh. So they're going to be going along the Vale High Road initially, and then going over this bridge, I guess, and coming in here. Now, so the sites of interest then are going to be along the Vale High Road, and we're going to move through Witchcombe or by Witchcombe down into Limp's March to get this item and to restore the idyllic nature, or the source of some of the idyllic nature of Lambeth Hamlet. Who's here? Kindly people, natural beauty, fairs, and festivals. It's the only settled area frequented by the questing beast, as the folk here have long since outgrown the notion of gaining glory and renown through deeds of violence. So it is a place of calm, as described in particular peaks here, which is why particular peaks, Dream Peak, is also here. And our Pepper is living in this mushroom house, very, very happy. But he is called upon, and he brings his friends Constance the elf and Webster the thief to help him in this journey. I'm going to go pretty basic for the travel, what's going to happen with travel, and I'm going to turn to the Wayfarer's deck and just roll. There's 50 cards, and as we move, I'm going to do a roll and see. That's going to give me the initial inspiration for what happens as we set out. So that's going to be the travel. But to start, we're going to see what's going on in the hamlet right now by just doing this D12 roll and taking it away from there. 7. Oh, we have a weather vane. So we're going to be setting out from our hamlet, and on the way we are going to be encountering this weather vane and interacting with her. She's a sentient weather manifestation, and she is preening, prancing, primping. She has expressive features, but she's otherwise non-communicative. It says, sometimes in the Vale, weather conditions give rise to vistas so stunning they take form and gain self-awareness. They become weather vanes, mystical entities of great power and caprice. While their characteristics depend on the particular vista that gave rise to them, they all have one trait in common: they are extremely narcissistic. But if well pleased, they may bestow a boon. They do like to be looked at and admired. So as they set out down this road, getting onto the Vale High Road, they are going to encounter a weather vane, and I want to see, what direction she can point, so to speak. Are we going to gain any information about this? What is the theme or feeling of this weather vane going to be, and how are we going to interact with her about that? Pepper, with his +1 to reaction table rolls, is going to step up, and I'm going to roll on both the monster reaction table and the retainer hiring reaction, because I feel like this weather vane is kind of like in the middle here, and so that brings us to a 3. So in that case, she's going to be hostile, and that brings us to a 7. Roll again. So Pepper's really trying here to get something going. Another 7. He's trying to appeal to her, but it's taking him a while until finally he does. And not only does whatever he's asking her result in a positive benefit, and we're going to see what that is, but a +1 loyalty. So I think this weather vane for a bit is going to come traveling with us. Perhaps she's going to help lead the way through the wilderness a bit for us. To go to the wilderness roll, as I said, I'm going to roll on this Wayfarer deck, and there's 50 cards in the deck, so I'm going to do this imperfect thing where I'm going to do a D100 roll and just round down and divide by 2 if above 51, but in this case I rolled a 43, so card 43 tells us that it says, a wayside shrine decorated with flowers attracts your attention. Someone erected this effigy to commemorate an unknown cause and visits it frequently. Now, in terms of interacting with the weather vane, that's a lot of different ways to go. I think the first thing I'm going to do is see what her attitude toward us is, and we'll go to this generator. So she's cautious, and then I'm going to use this poker deck to see what the conversation focus is on here. We'll just kind of do a terrible shuffle and get a 4 of diamonds. So community and knowing, logical. So this is telling me she's cautious. She perhaps is going to give us some information about the situation with this item that we need to find. All right, let's stick here. Let's stick to this concept here. We know that the weather vanes are created. They're given rise to by something that happened. So I want to know whether she is here because of the fact that that item is missing. And since I don't know the answer to that question, we're just going to give it even odds. Is she here because of that? And no, she's strongly not. On a 6, however, it says it's unlikely and what? Let's go to and what. Let's seek an answer to the and what. And what is going to be a Queen of Diamonds. Again, assist, interesting, mental, plotting, technical. She's here to help us. She says someone has built a well in the absolute middle of nowhere. This is that forest, or excuse me, this is that flower shrine that we're standing by where the weather vane is. And the Constance, our elf, steps forward to try to interact with the weather vane. And the thematically, what we're going to say here is she's going to attempt her ESP spell where she can learn the thoughts of another. She's going to cast the spell on the weather vane to see whether we can get as much information about from the weather vane as possible, maybe leading us exactly to where this magic item is or something of that nature. So we'll see if she can do a save, and indeed she does, because she just needed an 8 or above. So that's like a strong save. So we're not getting like a ton of information, but we're getting something, and what we're getting is going to be directed by these flowers and this wall here, that perhaps there's something buried in these flowers, or this is a signifier of something that we need to investigate. And I think what we're going to do, I think we're going to have Pepper with his thieves tools maybe try to dig up or look around in this area. He's got a 25% chance of, or excuse me, a 30% chance of like opening a lock. So let's see, can we get him to, can we get him to find something by digging around? That's not going to work, no. So as Pepper is digging through this flower bed here, we're going to ask the oracle. We're going to ask the oracle, like, how is the weather vane responding to our search in this flower bed? And the answer is she is going to assist in some way. Well, she's going to assist. So that the flower bed area is, according to the oracle here, something that the weather vane feels is helpful. It probably means that the whatever is buried here is related to the problem that we're having, or maybe the solution to the problem that we're having. The only source material I have right now that has plants in it is this Dark of Hot Springs Island, and it has 24 plants in the back that are described. So where I'm going to go is whatever we roll on here is what we're going to dig up, and that's going to hopefully give us some information. So to do a D24 roll, I'm going to do a 2d6, and if I roll a 5 or 6 on the control die, I'll just re-roll to get my number, and ooh, we got a 34, so that's going to be a 16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 16. We discover a salt vine, an elemental plant from the plane of salt that absorbs water and humidity. Prized by librarians, its crystals begin clear and turn milky white once they've absorbed all they can. Should be handled with extreme care, as a single handful of crystals can desiccate a normal human in about 4 hours. Some larger specimens may link directly to the plane of salt and have an unquenchable thirst as a result. Interesting. Well, this is telling me a lot. This is telling me, first of all, that it is an elemental plant, so the crystal vine came from this. The salt thematically is representing the tears, the sadness of the area. She did arise from this vine and this weather condition that gave rise to the vine to express the sadness of the area, to further the need, the desire of this land for healing. So we're leaving here, and really we're leaving, I think we're leaving with the weather vane with a sense really of just a sadness and a loss. And I think that was a feeling I was getting from developing this story, that this hamlet is a place that is existing almost despite the rest of the world, and the fact that it's idyllic nature is being threatened, that the dream peaks, which is a place of longing and, yes, dreaming, but also the reality of the folk that can live here and are privileged to live by them, it is threatened, and we are really feeling this loss. And the weather vane here, this is the reason she's coming with us. She was born of this melancholy, really, and yet has the connection to the beauty of the place. And so she's going to be following along with us as we travel the edge of the forest she here to get to the Vale High Road. So as we're going there, we're going to do our D12 roll and see what we may be encountering along the way here. And here's my D12. We got a 6. A 6 is, we said here, so it's 2d10 Seelies. So what is here? Mostly are Seelies. So Seelies are, there's a handy table here, also known collectively as the Seelie Court, although not all Seelies participate in court life. So we're going to be encountering 2d10. That's a lot. Well, I guess they're little. 2d10 Seelies, and let's see what they are. So we're traveling along the way here, and what is here? What are the Seelies that are here? The Seelies that are here are leprechauns. Oh, well, that makes sense. We've got a rainbow. Maybe she's bringing her rainbow with her. There's 2d10 leprechauns, and around here, I got to get another d10 to see exactly. Let's see, how many leprechauns are there? They're sort of on the side. There's 9 leprechauns here, and let's see. Do we have leprechaun stats in here? There's no leprechaun stats in here. So we're going to go truly old school here and look at the leprechaun entry from the AD&D Monster Manual and note that they're magical, and if they're discovered, they have a 75% chance of taking something valuable from you, kind of in a mischievous way. So we might want to leave them alone. And it says here at the end of the entry, rumor has it that they are a species of halfling with a strong strain of pixie in them. So maybe they're related to Pepper. Maybe Pepper, way back when his ancestors lived here in the forest, and then he eventually moved off to the hamlet. So we see these leprechauns here, but we're inclined to avoid them. These 9 leprechauns kind of dancing along the edge of the forest here, and maybe we'll just go to. Whoops, maybe we'll just go to a, all right, well, they messed with my camera. All right, let's go to this oracle and just sort of see, to the extent that the leprechauns are could be considered like a random event. Let's just sort of see what their focus is. So random here. 8 of hearts, a remote event. Passive, docile, positive. So they're just, I guess they're really just part of the nature here. And let's see, what are they doing? What are they doing over there? They are taking, and they're just, you know what? They're just playing, basically. They're taking something personal, social, emotional. They're just dressing, basically, as we wander along. And so let's do a roll to see, about the Wayfarer's deck. And as we pass the edge of the forest here with the leprechauns, we roll up card 3, which is you're stopped. It's a noble robber. You're stopped on the trail by a well-armed band of robbers. Their leader, a dashing scoundrel, claims they're a merry band of noble robbers, taking from the rich and giving to the poor. He looks you up carefully and hands you a satchel of coins. All right. Well, we had a little boon here as we're walking along. Maybe that was an emissary from the leprechauns. Who knows? Let's continue on. We're walking along this forest here, and on this roll, we're going to have it. So we're going to go to card 34 on that. And card 34 is monks. You encounter a gaggle of monks focused on quiet contemplation. They seem kind and willing to share supplies and stories, but their secrecy regarding the pilgrimage's destination suggests a sinister purpose. This is worth thinking about thematically, metaphorically. We see the monks there, and we're going to roll a 1d6 to see if they are surprised by us, and they're not. So we're going to, the halfling's going to approach them, and he's got the +1 modifier for charisma if he's doing a roll, an NPC roll. So we're going to go here and just kind of see what their reaction is. So they're not surprised by us, but their reaction is 6, 7, 8, 9. Offer accepted. So they're open to whatever it is that we're going to be saying or doing. And I guess what they're by the edge now of this bridge, and thinking back to the concepts that we've been developing, and that actually in this video you can see how they got developed a little moving forward to the backstory, is this concept of nature and transformation. And monks symbolize the monks in the wilderness, I guess, maybe they're contemplating nature. They are part of this divine world that is being threatened. So I wonder whether my expectation would be maybe that they have been sent here to think about how to retrieve this item. Maybe they too know that this magical item is here. I don't know. Let's see. Let's just roll for complication. I don't know. It suck if, so there is a complication. Well, I guess a complication in this place of serenity would be, I never rolled for wandering monsters, but we are out here at the edge of the forest, and I think a wandering monster is going to come by, and that's what's the complication. So we're going to have an encounter with something, and I'm going to go to the tables that I previously created. We're on the road, and who is going to wander by here? It's going to be a trader. And trader, first level fighters live by trading in borderland areas. Okay. They're usually carrying these arms. They have mules. All right, well, let's do a reaction roll on this trader first of all to see what that is, what we get there. And oops, I lost the table. So that's a negative reaction. So whatever it is, they're not going to want to trade with us, and I think we are going to have a little hostilities here. So the traders approach, and I want to see, first of all, now I want to see how far away they are when we initially spot them, because that's going to determine what type of combat we're going to have. So we are sort of nearby. So I'm going to roll these 2d4, which of course I don't have out. They're a few paces away. So the traders are approaching us, and we're going to roll initiative and see what we're going to be the red and they're going to be the yellow. So we get initiative here, and we need to figure out what we're going to do. First thing we need to do is to see how many of them there are. There's 3 of them. So there's 3 traders, and they are coming, maybe they're coming out of the wood, out of the forest, because they're perhaps loggers, and maybe that's what they have to trade. So there's 3 of them, and they each are going to have an HP of 1d8. So one of them has 8, one of them has 7. They're very hardy traders, and one of them has 5. And the question is, are we surprised by them? And we're not. Are they surprised by us? They're a little surprised by us. We're getting ourselves together to have a fight. They're wearing skins of maybe even magical animals that they have killed in the forest. They have their hand axes ready. And what do we do? So Pepper and Webster, with their bows, are going to draw back, and at short range, they're going to get a +1 bonus to roll. This is going to be Pepper. He's got a total of +3, and Webster's got a total of +2 based on various modifiers. We're looking for, oh wow, great rolling, 19 and 20. We don't even need the modifiers. Both Pepper and Webster land their shots. They were taking aim at the same traitor, but which one was it? We don't know which the HP value is going to be, so we're going to roll a 1d3, roll a die to see which traitor, 8, 7, or 5 HP is hit, and they both are taking aim at the biggest traitor, the leader of the traitors. They're going to each do 1d6 damage off of 8 HP and almost take him out. He is just not quite gone. He is hit squarely in the leg and chest and falls to the forest floor, the dirt floor by the side of the road, bleeding, but still alive. He's down to 1 HP. Meanwhile, Constance has some choices here. She's got a sleep spell that is, I think she could cast the sleep spell on them all based on their hit die totals. She could cast a sleep spell. Despite the fact that Pepper and Webster brought out their bow and arrows pretty quickly to take down this one traitor, we're not really a violent sword, especially with these monks looking on. So the Constance is going to cast a web spell, and she's going to try to entangle the traitors in her web, and I think we're just going to continue on if we can do that, because we don't really want their treasure. We're not interested in a lot of bloodshed here. They can roll to try to save from that, and they don't. The one who has the 1 health, I guess he could roll to try to save anyway with his 1 health, but these rolls are bad. They needed a 16 or more to save against those webs, so Constance has cast her web, and the traitors are now entangled in this glistening, gooey, massive web that they would stay in for a certain number of rounds in a battle, but we are just going to leave them there. The monks are really a sign that we are on a divine mission, and the divinity here is the earth, the land, the restoration of this harmony, as we talked about. So we approach the Limps Marsh. This is what is described as a rickety bridge across the river here, and we are on the edge of Winchcombe, and Winchcombe is it's slowly sinking into the marsh, and it's full of mad folk. It is near the banks of the Limpsfield Burn, and these are prime locations for farming and herb picking. It's full of milkweed, so it is a place where we may have an encounter. What we're really looking for here is the item that this living vegetable has. This is way back at the beginning of our mission here, but let's start by rolling to see what type of encounter, what type of encounter we may have. We got a 6. So we see 1d10 Sealies here, and that's going to be, see what they are. It's going to be 1d10 of whatever they are. And so first of all, what are they? They are some fairies. Well, that makes sense. So we see some fairies here, and we see 4 fairies. I'm going to go to the Ask the Stars Oracle and just get a sense of what these fairies are symbolic of. They are symbolic of something to do with unification or identity and faith or deceit. Well, again, this is telling me this concept of faith and the belief in the natural world, and the fact that this unification is related to the fact that the world had been unified, it had been whole, it had been a place like with the dream peaks that is, it's just a dream now because of the this this item that needs to be returned, that is the missing piece to the puzzle. And the fairies are here symbolizing the fact that this they are maybe they're floating around in the area of the marsh where this item is and where the thing is being kept. We know that it's in a kind of bale of wood, so perhaps let's look around and see, are the fairies, well, we'll stick here. Are the fairies floating, flying around to symbolize where this thing is? And we rolled a 12. So they are. So we have come to this place finally at the conclusion of this portion of our journey, at any rate, where the fairies are. We look around this boggy, wet marsh, and somebody is going to try to perceive if we can find this, if we can see this item. And for that, I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to roll, I guess the halfling he's got the sort of most wisdom of the area. And of course that makes sense actually, because he is the one who lives in the land, he's living in the mushroom. But the problem is it's going to be really hard to discern this. So this is going to be at a -2 to see whether he can he does he see this bale of wood there? And he does. He sees the wood, even with the difficulty of doing so. He sees this wood floating in the boggy marsh, and he's carrying some holy water. Maybe he'll toss the holy water, not in a cleansing kind of way. He's going to toss his holy water to cleanse this item out of the muck of the marsh area and pick it up. And they're now holding this item, this bale of wood, inside of which is some necessary magical item that they have been seeking. And it is the thing which will be restoring the natural order and bringing bringing Rackham Vale back to its natural order. And at this point, there's a number of different choices, any of which would work narratively. We could roll on any number of magical tables to see what's in this. We could just attempt to open it, and we could roll to see whether actually opening it did bring harmony back to the land, or whether we need to. I think at the beginning of the video I said that the story would have my characters needing to carry it back to where they came from. But given the length of the video, that's not going to be practical here. Just speaking honestly, practically speaking, that's not going to work in one single video, but one could also continue the journey back, continue the journey elsewhere to see what one encountered. Those are options for fleshing out or finishing this story. What I'm going to do is leave this story here with you. Perhaps this is a story that you would want to take up, that it would be the beginning of adventure that you would start to play if you were in this world where you have a group of, it doesn't have to be my characters, but you have a group of characters who have just discovered some kind of magical item. They know that it is potent, and they know that it will impact the natural order of the world, but how and why and in what manner, those would be questions that you could start to ask in an adventure that you picked up where this one is going to leave off. So the first thing that I've done is I've decided I want to run 3 characters, and I've already built them out for the most part in following the OSE rules. And I'm also making them 4th level because I don't want to die right away. I've got an elf here with the charm person spell, a sleep spell. He's got his level 2 spells are web, and then there's ESP, which I am doing and making a house rule on that. So ESP, it says this spell grants the caster the ability to perceive and understand the thoughts of other living creatures. You can focus and just understand their thoughts. I'm going to house rule this to basically enable either a modification of a bad roll on, say, a response or an NPC interaction or something like that. So that is, I'm doing a little modification there. And the charm person also, so this allows a single humanoid creature to be charmed. I'm probably going to just pretty closely stick to the intention of that spell, but I find when doing solo RPGing that the magic spells are a place where often I'll do a little modification to allow for narrative development and more sort of what I like to think of as structured choices that I might come up with that would allow the narrative to move forward. So that's going to be my elf. We're going to name these characters. I haven't done that part yet, but we'll name them together here on video because that's kind of fun. I've got a thief, and I chose the thief because the in the skills for the thief, the thief is one of the characters that has percentile skills. And again, I find that playing solo, having having a list of percentile skills like this that I can use, it's helpful because it takes one of those points where I have to be both the GM and the player away. I can just be the player and, oh, we're going to climb this surface. I don't have to figure out all sorts of modifications. I can just roll the D100 and know my success or failure on that point. So I chose a thief. And my third character is a halfling, and he's carrying holy water as well as wolfsbane. And as I was kind of putting that in, I don't know why I chose it. And he's also got a bow with some arrows, and I'll talk about that in a minute. As I was putting the holy water and the wolfsbane around, I thought to myself, maybe, it's possible that the halfling actually is the character that lives in Rackham Vale, maybe, and maybe the thief and the elf are coming in some way to help him. I don't know. I'm just not. Somehow, as I was putting him together, maybe because he was the last character I created, I thought, well, the adventure should sort of center on him, or maybe because we're doing a wilderness, he's out there, and he's got the bow. I purchased 2 quivers of 40 arrows, but I'm not going to be keeping track of that. I spent my money on it, and I'm going to make the assumption that I'm not going to run out of arrows. So that's one rule I'm not using. I'm not using encumbrance rules. I'm not using travel distance rules. When we get into encounters, I will have some type of sense of how close I think the characters are going to be, but that's probably about all I'm going to use on that. So that's going to be that. I've gone through, in terms of like GM prep, I've gone through and selected out of the cards. This is Rackham Vale. Take a look at this map here. It's a little small for me at any rate, and I'm not sure how I'm going to decide to land in here, and that's where I was possibly going to take some inspiration from this packet of particular peaks, which has 3 different areas: the Passage Peak, the Dream Peak, and the Bleak Peak, that have some events and features. This may come into play. As I said, there is also an adventure generator here that I might use. I haven't even figured out where I'm going to get that from yet. So these are just some thoughts. I went through the Rackham Vale cards here with the monsters, and I just made a selection of ones that could possibly be likely to be in a sort of mountainy foresty area and chose those. So this will form my some type of random table for those encounters. And then I also went to Old School Essentials and pre-made a table there. So my special creatures of the land, this is my special creatures of the land table, and I've pulled out the cards here and I've chosen 10 of them. Forest vermin, just road NPCs or monsters that I might encounter, and then more wild forest monsters. And there's like a D4 castle kind of monster table, just trying to envision what I might encounter and wanting to pare it down initially so I can just quickly sort of do the roll and see what we get. And to flesh out the final parts of my characters, oh wait, there's one more thing I want to show you in terms of resources. I may keep track of the encounters here. I'm not really sure how I'm going to map this out. I might. For generator, I had downloaded this Apocalypse Oracle, and you can see the credits here on it. There's some cool stuff here using decks of cards for random events and for oracles, and then using the suits to give flavor to it. I've never used this before, but I found it and thought maybe, I don't know. So there's also a plot generator here. I'm not sure, but this is possibly a resource. And then to flesh out my characters, I am going to go to Maze Rats, and we'll do this together in a minute to get both the names of my characters, maybe give them a little personality. I'm not sure what. And then the final thing is I may find myself needing something, so I've got my wilderness dressing book out because that seems a likely source for filling in the blanks. And these are the resources I think I'm going to try to stick to, and I'm laying them out here for you at the outset of the how I did this portion, because a lot of people want to, it's almost like annotated footnotes. I just want you to know what at least what I think I'm going to be drawing from as I build the adventure. I'm going to go to the adventure generator from a packet of particular peaks and see what we get when we roll, and if that feels right. So it's like 3 d20s, and we got a 5, 14, and an 8. And that is, we are to retrieve an item from a living vegetable deep within a frigid swamp. You know, it's kind of crazy, but when I did the page through of Rackham Vale, I'm fairly certain I said that this place, Limp's March, I think I might have pronounced it Limp's March, kind of spoke to me for some reason, and I, that is like, well, it's a marsh. There's not a swamp here as far as I can tell, but it's interesting that came up, because I think in my other video I was saying like, oh, well, maybe we would start there or something, but it seems we have to go there actually. And this is, as I went over in the other video, in Rackham Vale, the designer helpfully tells us what's not in there. Whoops, what's not in here. And Limp's March is not developed in this book. It says it's witchy, boggy, and herby, but what else? Well, apparently it contains some type of living vegetable that we need to retrieve an item from in our quest. So I'm going to go to this wilderness dressing. Let's just see. I don't know. We're going to minor event 61. This is a minor event in a marsh. The sounds of marsh life, the buzzing of marsh insects, the croaking of frogs, and so on, abruptly cease. There's some danger there. That something is going on. There's a force or something, and maybe whatever this item is, and that is something obviously we're going to need to determine somehow. Whatever this item is causing some disruption here in Limp's Marsh that is interfering with the natural order of things or something. I don't know. And let's see if this dressing gives us anything. 80, 80, let's see, just 80. A bale of wood tied together with sodden string lies discarded by a pool. Well, perhaps this is this item. Maybe the item. I don't think the item is a bale of wood, but maybe it is tied up in this bundle. Maybe there was somebody carrying this item, transporting it from one place to another, and while it says it lays discarded there, maybe they were actually ambushed and abducted or something, and whatever this item is, which is clearly an important item and probably a magical item, was not detected because it was hidden in this bale of wood. I need to figure out sort of where we're starting from and to get to Limp's March. The postcard map that came with this is a little bit hard to read. This is less detailed but somewhat easier to read. Here's Limp's March right here. And this is where our hidden item is. We could, I wanted to bring this in so we could be starting here in some of the peaks. That's however long the travel is going to be. Well, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going totally random here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 16, 17. There's 18 features detailed, and I'm going to place us in one of them, and I'm going to place us in 14, Lambeth Hamlet. We're starting out in Lambeth Hamlet, and where is Lambeth Hamlet? Lambeth Hamlet is right here. It's somewhat near Pixie Peak. Pixie Peak is in the distance. Lambeth Hamlet is here. We need to go to Limp's March, and I think Pixie Peak is also going to become, in another culture, it is the same as Dream Peak. It's one of those locations reachable only via dreaming, but that has not and does not keep certain beings from treating the peak as their home. The terrain itself reflects an idealistic dream world view of nature, where trees are grand in size and mountains thrust majestically into the horizon. Crystal lavender-colored waters flow from unknown sources, creating countless waterfalls and pleasant rivers throughout the land. Sounds nice. Northern regions receive infinite blankets of extremely plush snow, often glowing in small patches with dull neon colors, creating a dim glow of rainbow at night. Falling stars fill the sky at all times, although they don't ever seem to impact the ground. This feels like a very magical spot, and perhaps this item came from Dream Peak. Perhaps it is a magical item that needs to be returned to this lovely land. So there are described some overland features here near the peaks, and near the hamlet presumably is near the peaks. So let's see what is by the hamlet. What's by the hamlet here are fantastical mushrooms that come in all shapes and sizes, prized for their potentially life-changing effects when consumed. The appearance doesn't seem to correlate with the several shroom effects that's on page 71. That sounds maybe like a table we can roll on. It's not uncommon to find fields of these where the ground is completely shaded by the shadows of shrooms the size of small homes. And it looks like some type of creatures here have been known to carve out significantly large examples of them, turning into dwellings, storage areas, or secret hideaways. All right, we're going to take this into consideration, and we are also going to look here on 71 for the shroom effects for something. This is sort of where we're starting out here. And the shrooms that are in our hamlet says the lines between dream and reality blur, casting one into surrealism. Well, I think we're already in surrealism. One of my new favorite light rule sets is Rougeland. I've done a video on that. You can check out the link there. And I want to go here because I remember there's this Rogue Magic table. It's a 2d12 table that gives you this perform an action on an object, and then there's also a D100 spells table, and this is where we're getting our magic item from. So 11 and 7, we can teleport an animal or a plant. Okay, we can teleport an animal or a plant. Maybe it's this vegetable. This living vegetable needs to go back to those peaks. I'm going to connect it to a spell, and the spell is 71. Sculpt elements. All inanimate material behaves like clay in your hands. Okay, so this is significant. I'm not sure how, but we've got this teleportation of an animal or a plant, and it's connected to inanimate material becoming like clay in our hands. Let's just look at that again. Sculpt elements, all inanimate material behaves like clay. Maybe we're meant to, when I hear something like clay, I'm thinking like maybe we're meant to create a golem or something. Maybe this item that is with the living vegetable in the swamp is needed to create some type of golem or protector or something to do with the peaks. And I'm feeling at this point like I kind of have enough to figure out my story and create the situation, because the peaks are this like idyllic place where my halfling lives, and maybe the elf and the thief also live there. And I thought initially that they would be coming to help the halfling, but I'm not sure that's the case anymore. But I found this in my desk, and this is my concept of these ideal peaks. And this object, like the thing that keeps coming up with the random rolls, is this question of there's the teleportation, and then there's the manipulation of the inanimate material. But of course, we also know that we had the specific designation of the living vegetable. So, this concept of whether something is animate or inanimate is what I think made me start to think about, is a golem involved? And is a golem involved in some manner that needs to be created as a sort of protector, or perhaps this item that needs to be retrieved from the swamp is the thing that is is the sort of missing piece to create the golem that is going to enable the peaks to continue in their idyllic state. Like something like that is where I'm getting this. And there again, this bale of wood is hiding something within, and when it's in Limp's Marsh, it is creating this disruption because it is out of its natural element. So I'm getting themes of nature, of restoration, of order, and that is, and then also the mush. So then there's the mushrooms. I have to take this a little bit metaphorically, but I do see my halfling. I see my halfling as living in one of these enormous mushroom homes. And my halfling is named Pepper. And Pepper is living in one of these homes in this hamlet. And perhaps the elf and the thief are just sort of with him by the fireside, trying to figure out how the three of them, I see them as heroic, but I also see them as not superheroes. That they're heroic in their actions. They're not necessarily heroic in their abilities. Now, I did make them 4th level, and I'm going to stick with that just for the purposes of gameplay, because I don't want to have done all this and then like die the first time I encounter something. So I did make them 4th level, but my sense is that narratively, thematically, they're just sort of everyday halflings, everyday elves, that are just regular folk, but they are called upon somehow by nature, perhaps, to restore order to their lovely land. And in order to do that, they're going to have to go and on their quest, as defined pretty early on in the process here, of retrieving an item from a living vegetable deep within a frigid swamp. As you know, I like to give my characters like a trinket or something to carry, and one of the things that in this case I'm gonna do something slightly different here to sort of flesh out their backgrounds. Pepper the halfling is our hero here, and I want to find out something about his background. I'm gonna go to Knave. Knave by Ben Milton is one of my favorite rules toolkits for this type of solo play, along with Ben Milton's Maze Rats. I love those two systems. They're just great. They offer a lot in a little package. So we're gonna do a little roll here to find out something about Pepper's background. Pepper, the halfling who lives in the mushroom area here, who's our humble servant, or not our humble, who's our humble hero. He has a background as an outlaw. Well, so maybe in his prior life he was doing something that wasn't quite as peaceful as it is now, and perhaps he's here as a kind of hideout. He's made his way to the peaceful passage. He's reformed. Perhaps he's reflective of a life once lived as an outlaw, and maybe he's actually being sought out as the leader by Constance the elf and Webster the thief, because they know that he has the skills to retrieve this item. And maybe that's why they're showing up. Let's see. Let's find out what misfortune happened to Pepper that made him here. He was kidnapped. Well, he was kidnapped clearly and escaped, and so he is actually in hiding. And what better place to hide than a place of peace? And I think he's been here for so long that he has been transformed into something that is very lawful and very calm. Doesn't mean he's not up for adventure or heroicism if that is needed, and clearly that's what is happening here. So let's see. So Constance the elf is feeling to me like more of the leader of the two, of the between the elf and the thief. She's feeling more like the leader. This is her idea to come seek out Pepper's help. Her background is as a gambler. She's takes a lot of risks, and this is a risk in seeking out help from Pepper. And all right? Well, I lost memory here, but I rolled a 20 on her Constance background. So she's been suspected of something. So she too is kind of on the run and coming to this place as a safe haven. So the Dream Peaks are becoming in, maybe this is all only in their mind, who knows, maybe this is one of those situations where the whole thing is just a dream, but she is coming here to save herself, but then is running into a situation where she's going to have to do something to save the land, really, that's saving her. And the last detail we're going to roll up here is Webster, our thief. And let's see, Webster, our thief, he's a pickpocket. Well, that's okay. And his misfortune is he was abandoned. So perhaps he was abandoned by his family, and that's why he had to turn to this sort of life of petty crime. And he's been connected somehow with Constance to reform. Maybe he's just so taken with her that he's coming along with her journey to Pepper to ultimately do some good in the world and bring himself up, perhaps. Now, I want to see whether I'm toying with the idea. I don't, the elf is a magic user who has a spell. I just want to roll on these. I want to give a spell roll here and see. This isn't going to be a spell that anyone has, but this is just going to be, I don't know. We're going to see. 35. Haste. Well, this is telling us, this is more like a divination. Haste. There's some pressure here. This is time sensitive in some way. 26, earthquake. This is telling me that the land is unstable and that their journey is going to be related to restoring kind of order to the land. So it's supporting that, it is supporting that concept. And control the weather. Well, I don't know. We're not going to be able to control the weather, but we perhaps will be controlled by the weather. So this is all reinforcing the concept that this journey is going to be somewhat urgent, and it is going to be interactive with the environment in a very significant way. And that is now where we sit. This is a tough one to talk about because Rackham Vale and a packet of particular peaks, which factored in a little bit descriptively, but then we moved away from it. Both of these settings are so evocative and so emotional in a way that it really made it challenging to do more with a story than just talk about the existing material. In other words, the story naturally seemed to want to reinforce the world in a way. I don't know if this makes sense. For some reason, I'm having difficulty talking about it or assessing it. Old School Essentials, which was the framework for working with this material, worked was showed up really easily. I mean, in the teeny bit that I could show you, because it's a very clean system and it was easy to come up with the necessary mechanics, but have them just be a little bit in the background. And I also, as I said, I omitted a lot of stuff, which I think still works in terms of the mechanics of the distance and the traveling. And I think I remembered at one point to roll for wandering monsters and getting lost, but I might have forgotten that too. Creating characters here, which I did off camera, is pretty easy. And as I said, I made them level 4 because I know that combat here can be brutal, and the amount of hit die that the enemies and monsters have can be excessive, and I didn't want to just run into something and be obliterated immediately. And the stats from Rackham Vale is keyed toward OSE, so the stats there are going to be equally as brutal. I think this material is a great resource for soloists, even just to read, to understand the kinds of descriptions and the ways in which visual imagery can work to be narratively evocative. I mean, look at that. That's a story right there. And as I said in the video that I made on Rackham Vale originally, to take the art of Arthur Rackham and place it in this context is extremely clever and is seamless, because there's a world right there. And we were sort of actually living in this, we were sort of living in this world. So that's what became of Cragger Bottoms. I mean, it's funny and it's fantastical, and it is just crazy from the imagination of somebody and the creativity to put it into to give it stats and to make it potentially come alive. If I were sitting down to do this again, or when I sit down to do this again, what I would do probably is I would just shuffle up these cards or roll randomly on all these cards are represented in the book. I would roll randomly on this table and just read about this creature, and maybe have the creature be the hero or the beginning of my story. You're told what they want, what they hate, what they like, what they are, and you're even given some keys about role playing. And I would start there. I think you could easily do that without and even having necessarily a character, because there was a part of me, and maybe this is for a future video, I don't know. If anyone likes this idea, they can put it in the comments. There was a part of me that just wanted to look at this and read it and start talking and start thinking, and then maybe pull in another card and start talking and start thinking, and dispense entirely with any type of NPCs or characters that I created, PCs that I created, and just have a story with these existing characters. So that's I would enjoy doing that. I don't know if that's a very useful video for people to see, but I think that is something, the way this material is presented, that could easily be done with this source material.